All right, for a review of the week, let's take a look at questions 45 through 50. Okay, so 45 to begin with. Write the name of each polygon. I gave you guys a list a couple of days ago. So let's actually count how many sides there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Let me just write n is equal to 10. That means how many sides there are. We talk about a list, and I call this decagon. Right, a couple of days ago, we covered the names of polygons. I gave you guys a list, and they had to have from 3 to 12 sides. In this case, 10. Another thing we talked about was concave or convex. Concave, I'm trying to find a hole in it. I'm trying to find a dent. I don't seem to find one. Another way I can find if it is a concave, I'm going to look for a diagonal, and my diagonal can go outside of the figure. If it goes outside of the figure, then it is concave. My diagonal, like I mentioned before, is when I connect corners that don't give me a side. So for example, like this is a diagonal. This is another diagonal. This one right here, this one right here, and even this one right here. I don't see any more diagonals. I drew all the diagonals that I can do. None of them go outside. So this is convex, right? If one of them went outside, concave. Another way I could find a concave is like if you find a dent, like a hole in it. Let's move on. Let's change pages. Let's take a look at number 47. Now, classify each triangle by its angles and sides. So there's two classifications, angles and sides. When it comes to angles, I go by the biggest angle, right? The biggest number that I see is 74. I see it twice. I'm just going to pick one of them. The biggest number that I see is 74. That's the biggest angle. Now, 74 is less than 90. So I'm going to call this acute. Based on angles, I'm going to call this acute. Now, when it comes to sides, I see two sides are equal. When two sides are equal, I call this isosceles. You go back to our lecture that we did before, we talk about isosceles, that's when two sides are equal. Scalene, that's when none of the sides are equal. They're all different. And we also talk about equilateral. That's when all the sides are equal. Looking at number 48, the biggest angle that I see is 90 degrees. 90 degrees sometimes is represented as a number, like in this case. Sometimes it's represented as a box, a red box. So 90 degrees, we call that a right angle. Now, when it comes to sides, again, I see two sides are equal. So I'm going to call this isosceles. And then we also talk about the names of quadrilaterals. State the most specific name for each figure. Now, in this case, question number 49, I see the top side and the bottom side are parallel. Those two sides are parallel. I can tell one of them is bigger than the other. And the two sides at the side, they're not parallel and they're different sizes. So I'm just going to call this trapezoid. If these sides, so keep in mind it said if, those sides were equal, I will call it isosceles trapezoid. But because they're not, it's just trapezoid. Now looking at question number 50, I see when it comes to angles, I see they're all 90 degrees. So it's a rectangle. But also when it comes to sides, I see they're all equal. So it's also a rhombus. A combination of a rectangle and a rhombus, we call that square. So this was a quick review of what we saw in the week. There you go.